Hello and welcome once again to another discussion being brought to you by the Ministry of the Blue and Green Economy, Agriculture and National Food Security. I am your host and presenter today, Petra Grell-Shillingford. Some of you may be aware, September is the time when a number of activities take place. But for us, within the Ministry and the Division of Agriculture, we look to raise the awareness of the use and misuse of pesticides. And so today we have as guest our lead inspector, that is, Mr. Joseph Blanford, and a senior environmental health officer, Miss Isabella John. Welcome to the program today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. As I said, Pesticide Awareness, we raise the awareness of pesticides, and this year the Caribbean Group of Pesticide, the Control Board, has chosen the theme PPE, which is Personal Protective Equipment for COVID-19, PPE for pesticide use, health and safety for all. So that's the theme for this year. Normally, we would have gone into schools and gone into do various on-farm visits, but as you know, COVID-19 has really taken its toll, and we have had to shift gears and change all the way we do things. And it has even been part now of the theme pesticides and PPE. So before we continue, let's break it down for our viewers. What exactly is termed a pesticide?
Okay, pesticides are really a group of substances that are used for controlling, eliminating, or restricting pest activity. Pesticides fall in a broad category. When we say pesticides, we talk about the insecticides, the nematicides, the acaricides, the molluscicides, the rodenticides, and the whole works. Okay, so all those will form of what we call pesticides.
Okay, so the rodenticides, the nematicides, can you give us practical examples so we can better understand what they are?
Okay, when we say rodenticide, any any product that is used for the control, or it is a product that is used for the control of rodents, rats, mites, and that sort of a thing. We talk about acaricide or miticide. It is used for the control of mites. Insecticide only controls insects. And then we have herbicides, which is your weedless, your touchdown, your both systemic as well as contact type pesticide that are controlled, or weedicides that are used for the control or elimination of weeds. We also have algicides that are used in terms of swimming pools and so forth to control algae, so it's a whole range. So when the broad grouping is pesticide, but the subgrouping will constitute of all those that I mentioned.
Okay, so pesticides, we're looking at broad range, yes, but also used everywhere?
Yes, both in the house, but household type pesticides, as well as in agriculture out in the field.
Okay, so we have the senior environmental health officer with us today, and we're very pleased for that. Tell us in terms of what is an environmental health officer, what are your responsibilities, and then we'll get into what are some other questions for you.
At Environmental Health Department, we are equipped with approximately 25 staff members, headed by our chief. We have 4 supervisors, and we have about 18 district officers who are located throughout the island. We have 7 health districts. As environmental health officers, we have a responsibility to ensure that the activities that are taking place in the environment by the public is safe, to safeguard the health and the safety of all. And right now, we now see the importance of ensuring that our activities are safe, that the things that we do are safe, because we all know about the COVID-19 pandemic. So at Environmental Health, we do a variety of programs. We are responsible for ensuring that the food establishments, they provide safe food for the public. We do water quality monitoring. We do vector control, so you might see persons coming out into on your premises to do some inspection. We do occupational health and safety, and that's where the whole issue of personal protective equipment comes into play, because we have the authority to go into the workplace and do monitoring to ensure that the employers, they are protected and they carry out their work safe. We also do institutional hygiene. Right now with the COVID-19, we have to ensure that the schools, that the places like your church, the gaming shops, the barber shops, the hair salons, we have to ensure that the protocols that the Ministry of Health that they establish are adhered to. So we do a variety of programs, a variety of activities to ensure that the public health is safeguarded.
Okay, so that sounds like a lot. I even feel a little bad for asking you, what is it that you all do? Blanford, when we come to, she told me practically, and you also engage, and I think you all are now going to even work together. What is your responsibility? You read pesticides. We'll get into COVID-19 in a bit. But in terms of pesticides and your day-to-day operations, how do you undertake those?
Okay, well, the duties and the role and function of the inspector as well is to ensure compliance with the regulations, the pesticide regulation. It will constitute inspection of facilities to ensure that the facility meet the standard for operating in terms of the safety issues, in terms of ensuring that the facility has measures in place to deal with issues of accidental spillage, how to contain that. Also the ventilation of the facility as it relates to the occupants that are operating in that type of facility. But more importantly, to ensure that the products that those establishments offer for sale to the public are in adherence to the regulation. One, they must be clearly labeled in English. We don't allow any pesticide into Dominica to be offered for sale to the general public that are labeled in Spanish, in French, in Chinese, in whatever. They must be in English. Also to ensure that how the products are stored, packed inside of that facility. We would not want to have a situation where you have liquid type pesticide above, powdered or granular pesticide, if in case you have an accidental breakage of a package and you're getting spilling of the liquid onto the powder type pesticide. Also, we also conduct training of the staff of those facilities, to educate them in terms of the types of pesticide, the various classes of pesticide, and to provide the necessary support for the public, because you must be knowledgeable about the product that you're offering for sale to the public, so you get greater interaction between the sale facility and the farmers. So these are some of the broad functions that we do.
Okay, we will talk about compliance a little later on, but when we look at the theme, PPEs, what exactly then? Because you both carry out inspections, you're both exposed to elements and exposed to other different pesticides, chemicals, etc. What exactly, can you define for me what exactly is a PPE?
All right, so PPE, or personal protective equipment, that's an equipment that is worn to protect the user from any harm. So in the working environment, be it whether it is a physical structure, so if you're a secretary or if you're a factory worker, you're working in a physical structure, that is your working environment. Or outside of the working environment, for example, a farmer or construction worker who is working out in the environment, they are exposed to hazards, they are exposed to conditions that can cause harm, it can cause injury, illness, or sometimes even death. So when you look at the control of these hazards, you look at things like eliminating the hazard or substituting the hazard or engineering controls. There is also what we call the personal protective equipment, the PPE, and that is the one that is least effective because you use it when other control measures are not feasible or not enough protection is offered by these control measures. So the personal protective equipment is basically something that the user wears to protect himself.
Against hazards, chemicals.
Right, and when we speak of hazard, there are different types. So you have physical hazards, you have biological hazards. So right now in the event of COVID-19, we have a biological hazard. Physical hazard, if you are working out in the environment, on the farm, you are exposed to extreme weather conditions. You have hot temperatures, you have the cold, you have the rain, these are hazards. Or you have chemicals, so for example, the pesticides that we use, even at our home, the basic household products that we use, the insecticides, these are hazards. So as the user, you wear a clothing or some other form of equipment to protect you, to safeguard your health and your welfare.
Okay, so for Blanford, for farmers, for us, for you in pesticide control, would that PPE, would that definition suit also your activities?
Yes, somewhat. But you see, because of the fact that you're dealing with hazardous type chemicals, from an inspector standpoint, you do inspection to the facility. You have no idea of what to expect in the facility. So you need to ensure that you have the appropriate PPE that will provide protection from whatever it is that is inside of that facility. If it is a facility that you're accustomed to and the operator from history seems to operate with, following the necessary protocol and safety issues that is related to the pesticides, how they are stored, the ventilation and all of those things, then the level of PPE that you would go into that facility would not be as high as compared to a facility that is a known history of carelessness or not following the regulation. So then your type of PPE, particularly your respirator, would have to be a notch higher that would provide the level of protection against that. But the basic PPE that you would require for such facilities, your boots, your gloves, your respirator, your hard hat. Your hard hat would be something like this, your head, your overall, your complete overall that would provide you that level of protection. Your PPE has to be designed to withstand or resist this type of chemical. So you would not go into a facility with an ordinary, what you call, a hair dyeing gloves. You would want a neoprene type glove, or glove that would be resistant to that type of chemical. The respirator would have to be something that would provide protection from you from acid vapors, so it will give you that level of protection. As it relates to a farmer who would be applying a pesticide, the same type of protection would be required for him to protect him from his head right down to his toe. Okay, so then the PPE becomes very necessary as it relates to agricultural activity as well as inspection in a facility. Because when you're inside of a facility, you're in a confined area. And if there is poor ventilation and your respirator itself does not give you that level of protection that is required, you are putting yourself at risk. So you need to ensure that you have the appropriate type of pesticide and it is worn accordingly.
Okay, so can we say safely, no pun intended, that the rise of, because of COVID-19, PPEs and the usage of PPEs have now increased?
It becomes more important. It becomes more important as Ms. John says, you deliver biological hazard. So then you would have to ensure that you provide the necessary protection against, that hazard, because it's not something that you can just look and see on somebody's face or look at a desk or something and see that desk is contaminated and it's going to provide a risk. So you would have to ensure that you wear the necessary PPE that will give you the protection. You will be going in for boots and overall and coverall and hard hat and that sort of a thing. But the type of PPE that will be required will be your face mask, and also to ensure that you have the necessary disinfectant that you would require to do disinfection of the surfaces that you're going to come in contact with and that sort of a thing. But it will be important that you have the PPE that will provide you the protection against the entry of possibly droplets, the vapor, entering into your nostril, because you're going to be in close contact with a number of persons on a regular basis.
So we can say that because of COVID-19, we have started wearing face masks, the persons have been sanitizing, and so that is preventative.
Yes.
But also in application of pesticides, this is also necessary to have sort of a barrier between you and that chemical, that hazard. So for those who may have it, some persons under the World Bank funded project within the ministry receive PPE. Some persons, because of COVID, they just stocked up, but they're not really sure. So let's try to just run through quickly the PPEs and then we'll continue our discussion. So Isabella, can you just run through them for us, please?
All right. So when it comes to a PPE, you have to ensure that it is of a safe design, it fits you properly, because if it's not fitted properly, it makes a difference between you being safely protected or dangerously exposed. So it has to fit properly. Also, it has to be the appropriate one for the task that you are going to do. And remember, a personal protective equipment is personal. It cannot be shared among other workers. So we start from the head. For the head protection, you're going to protect yourself against injury to your head. Some falling object, you might be exposed to some electrical hazard or some splashes from chemical. You can use the hard hat. So this is one of them that you can use. Also, you can use what we call the bump cap. it will not have all these safety features like the hard hat. Or if you are out in the environment, you can use a waterproof hat that will protect you against any chemical that is absorbed through the cap. For your eyes, you have the safety glasses. This is just like our ordinary safety glasses. And we also have the goggles. So with the goggles, it provides you with all-around protection. So you'll notice that this covers all on the sides compared to your safety glasses. Now, persons who are wearing prescription lenses, they need to be aware that a prescription lens is not a PPE. Therefore, if you have to wear a prescription lens, you have to ensure also that you wear your goggles. For the face protection, you can have a face shield. Okay, this has to also be worn with your goggles and any other safety equipment that you have. For the hands, there are different types of gloves that you can use. You have to ensure that the type of glove that you are going to use is suited for the task. So you have to look at the type of chemical that you are going to use. You have to look at your nature of the contact. Is it that you are going to have only your hands exposed, or is it that you're going to have all your arm on your forearm exposed? You're also going to look at the grip requirements. Is it that the task you're going to have is going to be wet? Is it going to be dry, or is it going to be oily? You also have to look at the duration, how long it is that you are going to do whatever task that you have to do, as well as the size of the gloves. So we have this type that you can use. You have the vinyl. This is the vinyl, as well as you have, this is the nitrile. So for the persons who are allergic to latex gloves, you can use these types of gloves. Then you have, for the ear protection, you have your earmuffs, or sometimes you might have the ear plugs. The earplugs, you have those that are disposable. It means that it's one-time use. When you use it, you dispose of it. Or you have the earmuffs. We also have the body protection. You can have your disposable gongs. So persons might notice the frontline workers like us, we wear these ones to protect us whenever we are dealing with passengers at the ports of entry. Or you have your suits, or your coverall, which covers their whole body. And depending on the environment you are in, you might need to wear a reflective vest that is fitted over your coverall. For our respiratory protection, we have numerous respiratory protection. We have the face mask, which is being worn by everybody. This is loose fitting with one-way protection. This is the face mask. It has the straps, the loops that goes behind your ears. There is a metal strip that is fitted over your nose. We also have respirators. The respirators, they come in different forms. You have this one. You also have another respirator, which looks like this. All right, so these are two different types of respirators. And we have, these are considered to be disposable. They have two straps. Disposable, they have two straps. And there is a metal strip that fits over your nose. Then we have the half mask, as well as sometimes we have the full face. This is the half. It has a mouthpiece. It has cartridges, which has filters, as well as you have straps. Now, with the cartridges, you will notice I have two. One is olive green and one is black. So whenever you are purchasing your cartridges, you have to ensure that you purchase the correct cartridge based on your task that you are doing. So for example, this is the multi-gas, and this is for, the black one is for organic vapor. So somebody who is on the field doing some pesticide application, or persons who do painting, they could use the black one, as well as you could just choose the olive green one, which is multi-gas vapor. So these are basically some of the personal protective equipments that you can use to protect yourself while at work.
Okay, so that was comprehensive and that was insightful. But Mr. Blanford, for farmers, for those persons dealing with chemicals, pesticides on the job, what would you recommend?
Okay. Because you're dealing with a pesticide, the most appropriate gloves to give you the protection for your hand would be the neoprene type gloves. Okay? It must be of this length that will give you protection all up to your forearm. For your nostril, you would require the face mask. Okay? And then it would be important that you ensure that the type of cartridges that is required for the activity that you are doing would have to give you the protection against acid vapors. Okay, so you will have to get the appropriate cartridge for that face mask.
So how often would that cartridge need to be changed?
The cartridge would change once you start smelling the pesticide. It will be an indication that the cartridge has expired, so you would have to get the cartridge changed. But also you have to ensure that it is properly fitted, because Ms. John spoke about ensuring that it's properly fitted, because if it's not fitted properly, it's too slack, then you can start inhaling or taking the scent of the pesticide. So you would want to ensure that it is properly fitted on your face, not too tight, not too loose, but comfortable fitted, and you breathe out into it, and then you start checking to see if you're getting any scent of the pesticide has been applied. Once you start getting any scent, once it is properly fitted, you know that the cartridge has expired, you need to get the cartridge changed. The hard hat is necessary. We do not recommend any cap, cloth type cap, straw hats, leather hats, because those are extremely difficult to decontaminate. So we recommend the hard hat. It is easy for you to decontaminate this. Once it gets contaminated by a pesticide, you can get it easily decontaminated.
How do you decontaminate it?
By washing with your soap liquid. Soap liquid would break down the residue of the pesticide. You would have to get a triple rinse also. This is also necessary to protect your eyes from splashes of the chemical during mixing or in application. In most instances, you may apply a pesticide up and you get drift from the wind direction changes, you can get the pesticide blowing back onto your face. You need to have this to get you the protection. Also your complete suit, your complete coverall that would protect your body. Also, according to the type of pesticide that you apply in, this can be necessary, especially dust type, pesticide and so forth. This can be necessary. Your complete coverall, again, it should be of a material that would absorb any chemical, okay? Any type chemical, you don't want it to get into contact with your skin. So that coverall will be worn over your clothes, okay? The boots also, take up the boots. The boots, you would want what you call a tall boots, which is up to your knees, okay? Most important, you would have to get something that can resist the chemical, a chemical resistant type boots, okay? So these are some of the more important pieces of PPE that would be required for pesticide application. And most again would come in handy for your inspection also.
Okay, so once these PPE is used, it's personal to you, yes?
Yes.
But how do you, let's say, have them first stored for future use? What do you do? How do you go about washing them? How do you go about caring for them? Even when you do your inspections, do you move from one location to the other using that same PPE? So you all will answer accordingly.
Okay. With regards to if you're doing an inspection, once you come out from that particular facility, you have to ensure that your gloves, because you'll be touching, you might have to inspect, you look at labels on packages and containers. You would have to ensure that once you leave that facility, you would get your gloves decontaminated, okay? Your respirators also, you can also decontaminate them, not immersing them into water, but you can get them wiped out, all of the edges, the straps and so forth. They have to be stored properly, especially your respirator. You would place them back into a Ziploc type bag and have it stored in a cool, dry area. Similarly with your gloves, you would avoid, if you have to wash it, immerse it totally in water, you turn them upside down, get them dry properly, and then you would store them away in a suitable dry area. Similarly with your boots, because you could be walking to a pesticide facility which has had leakage, you know, or contaminated of the floor. You would have to ensure that your boots also is properly washed. Your coveralls or your overalls have to be washed separately. Not with your normal laundry. It would have to be washed separately with a pail. You put your soap powder and then you get it washed, triple rinse and dry it. Okay? Your goggles similarly, because it is a plastic type material, yes, you get some soap liquid solution and then you wash it thoroughly and dried and store again in a cool, dry place. So these are some of the basic steps, and it applies both for inspection as well as if you are a farmer and you use those pieces of equipment, you know, as your PPE, you need to have them regularly after every use, decontaminated. If you come in from one facility to go to a next, it necessitates that you wash it is advisable that your gloves should be washed. You may not necessarily have to take out the PPE because in most instances you in inspection, especially in Roseau, a lot of the outlets are close by. You move from within walking distance. You move from agri sales to City Drug Store, which is just a block, half a block away. Or you go through some of these Chinese outlets, which also sells pesticide. Then they are in close proximity. So it may not necessary for you to take it out and go through the whole process, but at least your gloves should be properly decontaminated.
Also, bearing in mind when you are using the PPE, you have to remove it safely also. Yeah. So you have to ensure that you remove it safely. If you are moving from one facility to another and you have to remove them safely so that you don't contaminate yourself. Yeah. Also, if you, at the end of the day, when you are through using the PPE, you have to ensure that you clean it. And just like how our normal clothing, that we wash our clothes, you have to ensure that they are clean at the end of the working day. Do not use any type of chemical that might further deteriorate it, because some of them, your hard hat, just a basic soap and water can clean it, and you don't have to. Some of us use rubbing alcohol. I'm guilty of that. You are not supposed to use these things on the personal protective equipment because it deteriorates it.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Okay. And I know we have some instances, we said that proper removal of the PPE is important.
Yes.
So do you take out the respirator and put it on your vehicle on the passenger side? Do you take that PPE and store it? Let's say, you know, some farmers have sheds and they have everything there in their sheds. Do you take that and put it away in your shed where you have the chemicals for future and next cycle use?
Okay. Well, when talking about removal of it, that we will depict when we put on the video. But just to say that one can use all of the PPE that is required to protect himself against a chemical. And at the end, after using all of those PPE, can recontaminate himself by just removing it the wrong way. Okay? There is a rule of thumb that the first you put on would be the last thing that you take out that you remove. For example, your coverall would be the first things that you put on, so it would be the last thing that you'll be removing. Okay? Similarly with your gloves, because of the fact that the gloves are on like this. That's your glove. You have your gloves on, you finish for the day. You will not just take your gloves and you have your coveralls on, because the coveralls have to come off. So you would not just take your gloves and just stand to remove your thing. You would first get this, and this would be the last that you'll be putting on. This would be the last thing that you'll be putting on. Your respirator and everything else would be on already, and this would be your last thing that would be on before you do any mixing, any spraying, any application. When you finish, you do your washing, your normal process of washing your entire hand, and then you remove them. How they are removed, you do just, and then hold that one with that one. Let us say you get a spillage occurring and then you have to take it out quickly. You would have to ensure that it is removed properly, and this is the proper way to do it. And you hold them like this, and then you place them out. But if you have the coveralls on you, you have to remove it. We will depict that when we on the use of the
Okay, so we're saying that I mean COVID-19 really and truly it's part of the theme because it has really heightened and it triggered us into being careful, and we cannot stress that enough. Do you think that farmers will understand why we have brought that into the mix? Pesticide awareness, we keep on doing it every year. Do you think that as inspectors, both of you all, that persons in the stores will understand the training, will adopt the practices within what we say when they're being trained?
Well, slowly and slowly, farmers and other workers in other facilities are getting on board. But there's always the need for this continuous reminder and education. Because human beings, they just take certain things for granted. You still go out there amidst all of the training, all of the sensitization, and you see persons still not adhering to the practices. But as much as it's possible, we always use the opportunity to interface with them and remind them that it is not business as usual. COVID-19 changes a lot of things for us. Okay? And we have to ensure that we follow the necessary steps and procedures that are in place to ensure that. In going around, I have noticed a greater awareness among persons as it relates to COVID-19 especially. COVID-19, but you still see persons applying pesticide without the appropriate PPE for that particular activity. Just recently I saw a lady and she was spraying. Yes, she had her boots, she had her gloves, but she had no respirator. And she was a farmer applying pesticide. And that is of concern to me, especially as an inspector, because as a woman, she goes home, the kid is crying, she's not going to remember she was applying pesticide. Okay, she's not going to remember she was applying pesticide. The first instinct of a mother is to get to that child, comfort that child, find out what is wrong with that child. She's going to embrace that child. Okay, and that is where the risk is. Men are always a little more hard-headed and stubborn and believe it will happen to someone else and not them, or they will tell you like for years now they are applying this, then nothing will happen and that sort of a thing. But we still use the opportunity in our farmer training to bring that across to our farmers, to let them know that pesticides are dangerous. It takes 20 minutes for you to see a response to an application of a pesticide, especially weedless or gramazone, onto a herb. And the thing I tell them, if you can do that to the grass, your lungs is far more delicate than that blade of grass. So think of it. And the cost it's going to cost you to go to a doctor. Sometimes the doctor may not even know what's wrong with you, may not even be honest and tell him that you were applying a pesticide and you were not using the safety protection that is required. And there you might just be fading away and dying away because of your negligence.
Yes, because statistics show that over, I think, 1 million people have perished annually from exposure or overexposure to chemicals and pesticides. But Isabella, do you think that because of all the statistics, all the knowledge, COVID-19 and the media surrounding it, do you think that adoption of best practice will be taking place more quickly or more quickly than in the past?
All right, so with COVID-19, we have noticed that one of the measures that are in place is the use of the face mask. And right now, everywhere that you go, you are required to wear a face mask. So at least that is something out of the whole COVID-19 pandemic. That is one thing that came out good, that we are strongly enforcing the use of the the respiratory protection. Sometimes we notice that the workers, they don't comply because they complain of the cost. However, in the workplace, there is legislation, our Employment Safety Act, that makes it mandatory that the employer provide the employee with personal protective equipment. And when they provide them with it, they are required to wear it. That is part of the law also. Now, we have noticed, when I do training, I say to persons, what it is that you rather? Is it that 15 years down the line after you have retired that you are now sick with some form of cancer, or you are you go to work today and you come home without a toe or a finger because of your negligence or your refusal to wear personal protective equipment? So you wait. Is it I can bear with these missing body parts, I can bear with having a cancer, I can bear with some injury while I should be enjoying my retirement, or you just for half an hour at the workplace wear the personal protective equipment. Forget about the cost, think about your health, because when you look at it, what can be more expensive than your health?
Because health is wealth, and Blandford, you're looking forward to your retirement, so I don't think you'll be in that. But when you put it this way, I think the message resonates. But looking at what we've also noticed is that farmers and across the island engage, as they should, their children in the operations of the farm. Children meaning teenagers, and maybe a little less than being a teenager, but you know, they do a little fertilizing for farmers, they pick up the little things here and there, they harvest. How do we incorporate that? Just not the farmer alone, but the farm family being incorporated in the use of protective equipment?
Well, when we conduct the trainings with farmers, we don't only limit the discussion to he or the other person that's applying the pesticide, but we have to look at things like your re-entry period into the fields. Because clearly, most of the pesticide label indicate you on the label that you have a re-entry period of 72 hours, 24 hours, or 40 hours, as the case may, which means that if your workers enter that field before that time period, they are at risk of being contaminated with the pesticide. Similarly, your children, you know, or your other members of your extended families. So that applies to them. So we try to sensitize them of all of the possible risks due to that particular pesticide being applied, that the family, the workers, and the owner of the farm are being exposed to. So we try to show that linkage between that. So we have stress that you need to comply with all of the instructions that are on the label. Your re-entry period, sticking to the recommendation, ensure that when you apply that particular pesticide, you apply according to the recommended dosage that is on the package, and also to ensure that you wear the necessary protective clothing, both yourself, your farm worker, because sometimes you see a farm worker may be hesitant to use the PPE. And some of the reasons why they are hesitant, especially the overalls. Remember, we live in a hot, humid environment. And what they tend to complain about, that stuff is making them feel uncomfortable, sweaty, sticky, and whatever. But you need to bring across to them that it is safer for you to be uncomfortable for 2 hours than for you to be dying of a terminal illness, you know, because of your negligence, or have been spending money going from doctor to doctor and cannot get a solution to your problem because of your negligence.
Are you all exaggerating a bit to raise the awareness, or is that actual fact?
No, it's a fact. A lot of persons are, for example, some persons tell you, boy, I feeling suffocated using the respirator. I just not breathing properly. Okay? Whether or not that is, well, it can be so, because most of our terrain in Dominica is sort of on an incline, you know, and then you have a 4-gallon nap on your back, making several strips. The drum may be at the base of the hill, and you have to make several trips as a worker going to apply a herbicide. Okay, so you have to go uphill, come down, go up, come down, go up, and you have this overall, all your boots is wet, you know, soaking wet because of that. What we have done is to try to communicate that to most of the producers of the coveralls, to see if you can get something more lightweight and more ventilating than what is available on the market. Okay, and these are some of the things. But there is no compromising of your respirator. Your respirator have to afford you the level of protection based on the type of activity that you are engaging. So that cannot be compromised. But in most instances, what you get is things like, boy, $180 for a respirator, you know, how much dollars for that? So they look at the economic part of it and utilize that as a means of, you know, not using the appropriate, you know, PPE for the activity that they're going to. But then you weigh that against your health. A doctor visit now $100, $140. Okay, you go to the doctor 3, 4, 5 times complaining of a pain you're feeling in your stomach, in your chest, or not breathing properly because of your negligence. Okay, you would have utilized several respirators, the cost of several respirators, just go and buy a doctor and go and get some paracetamol by the drugstore, because the doctor doesn't even show what is causing your problem, because you're not honest with him and tell him, well, I'm using pesticide and I'm not using the appropriate protective gear, so I'm not sure if I'm unduly exposed to pesticide and that sort of a thing. So you have to, in the whole education aspect, you have to bring up that to them to let them know that their health is their responsibility.
Okay, and another issue is it's not really exaggeration, because sometimes we have learned that in safety, some people have the Superman syndrome. Oh, I've been doing it for so long, it's not going to happen to me. Oh, my father used to do it that way, something never happened to him. But remember, it's changed with technology and everything, new things are being developed. The chemicals that we are exposed to, they can cause acute effect, where in less than 5 minutes they knock you out. Or chronic, in 15 years, you see the side effect. So the PPE is uncomfortable, yes. But remember, when you're choosing a PPE, it has to be fitted properly and it has to offer some form of comfort. So when persons complain about the respirator, for example, in PPE, you know, in clothing, they say one size fits all. Personal protective equipment, that does not work. So, for example, the respirator that will fit me is not the one that will fit you. And that is why persons complain about the discomfort. You need to have a respirator that will fit you. And one of the things that we do not do in Dominica is what we call fit testing, which you're supposed to do when you're using a respirator. Even with me, if I have to use just the disposable respirator, I am supposed to do a fit test as well as a seal check. And what that means is when you put on the respirator, and to ensure that it is fitted properly and you are comfortable with it, you have to do your 2 tests. Seal check to ensure that you don't have any air leaking out or coming in, as well as you do the fit test to ensure that while you are doing the work, that the respirator retains the stability, because you don't want it to be moving all over. And these are some of the things that sometimes persons are not even aware that they have to do when you're putting on a respirator. So you have to ensure that for the PPE to be comfortable, it has to be suited for you. All right? And forget the cost, as Mr. Blanford said. The cost is next to nothing compared to you being safe while you are carrying out your work.
But for the intents and purposes, we need to discuss the cost.
Yes.
So, and I'm just thinking, but where would I get a respirator such as like this one on island? You know, normally we have the mask, etc. But where would I, so give us some ideas as to the cost and the locations we can purchase this. Because you don't want anybody going online and not getting proper, I mean, you can do, but I'm saying here in Dominica, you'll have a feel of it, you'll be able to get it fitted all, as you said. So where can we get those?
Okay, all 4, or what we used to be known as 4D. You can get the respirators, the 3M types. I'm not sure if AgriSeals carry 3M or another type of respirator, but all 4 and AgriSeals. City Drugstore, the agricultural segment, also used to sell respirators. I'm not sure if they have at the moment, or if they still trade in terms of, you know, personal protective equipments. So Do It Center may have certain types of PPE. I'm not sure of, yes, in town. Most of the shops, there are 1, 2 in Portsmouth. I can't remember the name offhand. There are 1, 2 outlets in Portsmouth who also sell respirators. Okay.
What would be the average cost of this?
Anywhere between 160 or 180. What I've noticed, a lot of these establishments tend to sell these by pieces. For example, they would sell the cartridges by itself and the face shield will be by itself. There's also another capping that goes over this.
We have a lot of practical examples.
Yeah.
So you remove this.
Yeah.
And this is sold by itself.
It comes in a sealed package. It comes in a sealed package. You know, it comes in a sealed package. But
the entire thing would cost about $160.
180 there around, closer to $200.
And you have it multiple use.
Yes, this can last for quite some time.
So for my year, I can budget and say, if I'm doing my chemical cycles, my pesticide cycles, this will last me for the year.
Yes, it will. It will. Okay. It can give you that for the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What again, where can we purchase the hard hat?
The hard hats, E.H. Charles, for all do it center.
Well, it's more, yes.
Yeah,
You know,
you will it for the
construction,
for these places. In most of
the
the
farmer
sale
have one
shop.
of those on them for the
Yes, yes, especially
Why?
when you, because you apply in pesticide, you want most of the, that's the only one that will provide, you know, the sort of a protection. It's not absorbent of the pesticide, okay? And that is important. You don't want a straw hat, you don't want a Levi cap, you know, you don't want this type of cloth type or a Nike cap, this type of cloth material, because they cannot be easily decontaminated. This is the appropriate one that can be decontaminated. If the drip fall, let's say you're using a mist blower, the particles are atomized very fine. The wind drifted back onto you, it falls on the hat, it can be easily decontaminated. The gloves, as I said, most of the shops and them would carry these types of glove. You would have to find out from them and show from them it's a nitrate or neoprene type glove. Chemical would give you sort of a chemical resistant.
And how much would that cost?
They should be anywhere between $18 and $24. The longer ones, they come in different lengths. You may get some that just above your wrist, as well as you may get some. This would be the ones that are recommended for pesticide application. The goggles, a lot of places carry the goggles. The paint shops, you know, Dupini, all these places would carry this type of goggles. 21, they're wrong. You know, between $13 and $21 for this one. This type you would get them by the brush cutter service outlets. You would get these types by the brush cutter service outlets. Yes, yes. So you would get those. If you are using the mist blower because you have an engine that is emanating, you know, noise, you could also get the brush cutter service outlet also carry those. Places like most of the hardware shops would carry those.
What about the others on the table?
The overalls, Dupini, LA Dupini, you get also by Cartrek would carry overalls, you know, Asta fans. Most of these places would carry anywhere between $90 and $120.
And that would be would last you as long as you take care of it.
Yes, they would. Most of the problems you get with them is getting torn by the crotch area because you're moving up hills, you know, and so you slip, you get.
So what would you recommend? You buy a one size up, bigger.
Or you double stitch.
But let me ask the environmental health officer then. What would you recommend to ensure that you have it, you know, and it's good, doesn't tear, it doesn't decompose on you?
You do not want to buy anything too small, it will tear.
Yeah.
You do not want to buy anything too big because it might be uncomfortable. You need to buy something that fits you.
Oh, okay.
But it depends also. So this you might probably want, for the coverall you buy something that fits you. Unlike for the boots, I think they say for the boots you buy one size up.
Why is that?
Comfort while you are wearing
your socks and everything.
Not only that, because you're using it in the sun, especially the black type boots, the sun can be real scorching on your feet.
Yes.
Okay?
That
And
is
then
correct.
in most instances you would use a long socks with it for the comfort because
what we call the bobby socks.
yeah. And then we must add also, because you are applying pesticide, your coveralls should be worn over the boots, not in the boots. And the reason why, if you let us see your equipment is leaking, you do not want the chemical running down the coveralls.
That is a very important point. I need you to repeat that, please, Blanford.
The coveralls, the legs of the coverall should be worn over.
So how you have your
Over the
socks
boots.
in your pant, you're going to work, you're going to church.
Right.
The pant is exposed. The same way the coverall should be exposed.
Yes, over this. The coverall is over the boots.
So now when we see the boots and we see the coverall tucked
not
on the
inside
boots.
of the boots, over the boots.
And the gloves,
Yeah, similarly.
the sleeves of the coverall has to be worn over the gloves.
Over it. and
Is that
not
something
inside.
new?
No, that's the proper way.
So we've been doing it the wrong way all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a very important point. But as we know with us, our time just flies by. I know Isabella was worried, but like we told her, no, it's going to go quickly. We move like lightning. Okay. So this is a serious topic. We will have other discussions. We'll engage. I want you to also tune in for our video. They're going to do a quick video on how to put on your protective gear, how to gear up properly, best practices, internationally accepted standards. But just to wrap up for us, Pesticide Awareness Week is here, but we don't want to forget next week, also because it's a continuous process. What would you like to say to our viewers, just in wrapping up?
Well, I would just like to let the general public be reminded that we are living in unusual time. COVID-19 changes everything. So we have to ensure that we take the necessary steps to adequately protect ourselves, both from COVID-19 and also in our daily use of any type of pesticide, to give ourselves the appropriate protection that is required to keep ourselves and our families safe.
All right, so just want to let the listeners know the personal protective equipment, it was made to be worn to protect you while you are at work. One thing you must always do whenever you are going to use any chemical, make sure that you read the label, make sure that you know the warning signs that are on the label, and as well as your material safety data sheets. If you are not so sure of what it is that you have to use while you are applying any chemical, read the labels, read the material safety data sheets. That information is readily available on these documents.
Okay, so there you have it from the two experts. And they're not only experts within their office, they go out on the fields, they go on the ground, they're very practical. We just want to say that the ministry and the Pesticide Control Board takes this very seriously. We want to remind farmers this is your job, this is your livelihood, and therefore if construction workers are doing it, other persons are doing it, those working in sewage, etc., that is something that you need to be cognizant of, that you too take what you do seriously and not just look for shortcuts and way out. Because in the long run, as they said quite rightly, some are chronic, some you see quickly, and some take a number of years. So we just want to remind you that your personal responsibility is your safety and your protection of yourselves and your families and your communities. So until next time, that's it for us for this month. I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying tuned. Do contact your extension officer for any questions or comments you have, any plans and programs of the ministry. Do contact us via our region or regional offices or via your extension officers. Until then, good luck and God bless.